anxiety, something that I think a lot of people are struggling with, including me, especially due to factors related to employment, visas, just the overall stress of also integrating into a society where you might not feel so welcome. So this video, I think I wanted to kind of highlight all the things an expat can expect when moving to Germany, and what to be aware of, and how to maybe manage that, how to manage your anxiety, or if you're prone to that. And I'll also give you some stories of what I've gone through that caused some of my anxieties. The things that made me the most anxious was after moving to Germany and then realizing that the contract I have has a 6-month probation period. This made me very anxious for various reasons. One of them being, of course, that, okay, I'm moving here, I'm taking all the risk, I'm taking the financial risk, and my visa is also tied to the company that I'm employed with. Even though it's a blue card, that doesn't mean that you can just switch employers. Especially very early on, it might be more difficult. So for me, the anxiety started building up as soon as I realized I've got a 6 months of probation, and that my visa is tied to the company, of course, and that the income I would be earning wouldn't allow me to really save any money. Like maybe a little bit, but it wouldn't be enough to rebuild my life if I were to be sent back to South Africa. This gave me a lot of things to think about during that time, because I'm not just responsible for myself, I'm also responsible for my wife. And me having to essentially make sure that I'm caring for my wife and that I can fulfill my part, or my end of the bargain, I guess you could say. That made it quite difficult. The lingering feeling of having your visa still tied to the company. At the time I was, employed by a startup, so not being sure if the startup would survive another year. Always seeing the burn rate, essentially like how much cash you have left and how much per month you're spending of that. So that's like the burn rate. So always being close to those figures and knowing that, okay, well, the company is gonna go bust in like 6 months or a year or whatever it was. And this gave me a lot of anxiety over time. It also built up, and I started feeling more and more burnt out by my job. The thing is that in Germany there are strong employment laws about working overtime and doing all sorts of activities after hours, being involved in events and things. So at the startup, even though theoretically things were still kosher, I was technically working longer than I should have, majority of the cases. And this was just set by the culture, because it's a startup and you have to wear lots of hats, and you're always continuously switching between different roles. And I mean, I liked it, but it also impacted my mental health over time. the aspects of moving to a foreign country, especially difficult as a foreigner who does not speak German. So I don't speak German. I had to learn German while living here, and my German is still very bad, like even today. So trying to make friends and integrating into the society, becoming part of like daily life, and even just doing the normal things like going to the grocery store, the cultural aspect, how people act in public and interact in public, it's very different from South Africa. And I think it kind of hits you in phases, right? Like in the beginning you might not pay too close attention to the small things, and you might have an almost tourist mindset about things. So everything is pretty great. You're here and like going to the shop is something new and you're experiencing it for the first time, and you feel fine even though you aren't interacting in German, or you aren't shopping like you should be. Over time you might come to the conclusion that, well, you've been here a while, why do you still not know these things? Or why is this still something that takes you time to do? And I mean, it's different for everyone. Like no one has the same sort of experience, but at least for me, being an introvert, it was difficult interacting with people, and also like learning German took me longer because of the stresses of the work. So imagine like working long hours, really giving it your all, having your brain function to the best of your abilities, almost like learning for an exam, and then having to learn more things after that. And it compounds over time, and it makes it more difficult to really, take things in. And then there's the aspect of dealing with the bureaucracies of Germany, of normal, everyday life. Or at least in my case, it was like, taxation, learning about that. Learning about my visa processes, how can I switch a job. All these doesn't seem problematic, but then over time you come to realize that it becomes more problematic since it takes a lot of time from you. I mean, another example, when I applied for my permanent residency card, I had to write the citizenship test. And although the test is easy and you can easily memorize it and just write it, it took multiple months of waiting for me to actually just write it, because all of the exam locations were fully booked. I was very lucky finding one that was like 2 or 2.5 months out, whereas all the others were booked like 6 months out. So it was like, like even that, like just the constant fear of, oh, if I don't get all of the paperwork done in time, what does my future look like if, say, my job doesn't work out? How do I reconcile it? Like, can I find a different job? And I mean, I've had to find a different job in Germany, and in some places it might be easier than others, and it might be easier depending on the salary range that you're looking at. But from my own experience, not being able to speak German or having some, like really good foundation, like for example, B1 German is like a good foundation. if you don't have, for example, B1, it becomes more difficult to find companies that are willing to hire you. And I mean, it might not be the case for all companies, I understand that. But in this case, when I was looking for a job, it was also during the time that was like one of the worst markets to be looking for a job. A lot of uncertainty in the market made companies hesitant to hire. I know this for a fact since I had other international friends who worked, as an HR inside a large corporation, and they would say, oh yeah, we're just doing hiring freezes right now. And that's it. Like, they aren't hiring, or they're just backfilling, or they're just collecting CVs for when hiring actually starts again. And so knowing all of this and trying to find a different job is nerve-wracking, and it's even worse when you are unemployed. Fortunately for me, I found a job before actually getting laid off, but I have some international colleagues who don't speak German, who were laid off, and they had fortunately for them, they had 12 months to get a job, but some of them took almost 8 months to find a different job while being unemployed. So they sat at home just applying, just doing interviews, just looking, and it took them 8 months. So, I mean, sometimes it's not even your fault for in this case. It's sometimes just the company that you're applying for would take a really long time to process your application, to get you that first interview, and then after that you have multiple interviews and they're spaced weeks apart from one another. It also depends on the company, but especially large companies, they take a while. I wouldn't, even the company I'm working for right now, it took me roughly 3 months from the initial response email, which does not include me actually sending the application and then waiting. So just from the response email up into actually signing the contract took 3 months, which is a ridiculous amount of time. So always keep in mind that when you are signing something or are signing a contract, or working in Germany, moving here, keep in mind that your visa is tied to your employer for that first 2 years or whatever it is. I can't remember the exact details, but in my case it was as far as I know 2 years, and then after that you are free to switch employers. You are free to switch employers anytime actually. It's just the process of doing it is more tedious. So let's give an example of, if you have just joined the company, you're 4 months in, you find a different offer, you have to first contact the the foreigners office, the KVR, and you have to tell them, hey, I have a new job offer, can I switch to this new job? And then you have to submit all of that and then wait for them to answer you, to say, okay, yeah, you can, you have permission from us, or whatever the decision was. And then in the second case, if you waited 2 years, and then you can switch freely. So that's a lot less, it's much better after 2 years. But yeah, anyway, so this video, I wanted to just go over all the anxieties and things that I've felt while being in Germany, and I just listed some. I guess, tools for you to also cope with these anxieties and what you can do about them to be better prepared. So the first thing I would do is find people whom you can be friends with. Find other internationals. Find groups. Germans are the most difficult to make friends with, from my own experience as well. A lot of other expats say the same thing. Learn German, and I would say find an employer that allows you, gives you the freedom of actually learning German. Either they are sponsoring you to learn it, they give you a reimbursement for it, or they're allowing you, some perk to like maybe lessen the hours for you to actually get integrated and sorted here. Or they have like a very strong relocation benefit. For example, they will pay for your rent, or they will move you here and look for accommodation for you, or help you with the administrative burdens. Because these kinds of things take up so much of your time. It's just such a time sink that you end up neglecting everything else, the important things. I think saving is your number one priority. Have at least 3 months reserves. That brings us to the end of this video. I really hope that you step away from this video with a better idea of what you can expect. And although this video focuses a lot on the negative aspect of moving to Germany and the repercussions of it, I would also like to preface this with that not everything is negative. There are many exciting things that you can expect when moving to Germany, and I would like to make a future video actually showing all the positive things about Germany, and not just life-wise, like quality of life, but also financially, and what kind of future you can build for you and your family. So thank you for watching till this point in the video, and I hope to see you next time. Cheers.